Hey guys, hello world, Chris.
Hey.
Good to see you again.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes.
Asaf. All
Okay.
right, we are going to shift from the global stage of wars and all that. Oh, wait a second, and talk
Shift
about
from global
something.
state of wars. Okay. Ah, you mean
Yeah,
just on the show? I thought you were.
on the
I thought
show.
Seth is now declaring that we're shifting from. That's
I
it.
wish.
Yeah.
I wish. Uh, Many
Okay.
Americans, maybe in your country too, but I
Mm-hmm.
know here you have other problems. You're waiting to run to the bomb shelters, but many Americans here are laying
Yeah.
awake every night,
Mm-hmm.
overcome by anxiety with
Mm.
this burden of unpaid credit card debt and loans, and
Mm-hmm.
this nagging fear that never leaves you alone, that you're never going to get out from under this. In the U.S., a credit card debt is almost $10,000 per Gen Xer. So Gen X is 40s to 60s or something like that. And then
One,
the
one
two
sec, Seth.
generation.
I feel like I want to hear you closer to the mic. Like I hear you
Oh
well,
yeah.
but
Okay.
Agreed.
but
I
Agreed.
don't have my normal mic with me, so
ah, there we
I
go.
tried a different
Oh.
setup. Is that
Ah, you
better?
left it at the office.
Is that better?
Again?
Yeah, it's better.
How's that?
It's better.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So Gen X, which
Yep.
is my generation, between millennials and boomers, right? Millennials
Mm-hmm.
are 20s, 30s, 40s, or 30s, 40s, and boomers are like late 50s to 70s or something. So my generation, who grew up in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
have $10,000 per person on average in debt.
Is that's not supposed to be a lot, right? Because that doesn't sound like a lot.
10,000 carrying $10,000 of debt doesn't sound like a lot.
I
To
mean,
me, it
if
Do
sounds
you
like
need
a
I
help,
was under the
bummer.
Chris?
impression that that there's people
Do you need
like
help, Chris?
tens
Do you
of
need to talk?
thousands.
No. Well, some people have zero, and other people have 150,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that, I mean, when you look, that's the average, Chris, but it's over $1 trillion
Mm-hmm.
across all borrowers in the
That
U.S.
sounds
A
like a big
trillion
number.
dollars in debt, which is I don't know what that is. 300. It's probably $35,000 per person.
Mm-hmm.
If you just spread it
Yeah.
somehow.
Like if
Okay.
you were to spread it evenly, just for the math. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the student loan debt is the same, another $1 trillion.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Whoa.
this just, you graduate, even if you were to get a job for $100,000, you got a debt for 300,000 or 200,000 or 100,000 or 50,000, whatever it is. It's like a third of what you make is going to just pay.
Right.
Your,
It's like
so anyway,
enslavement is built into the system. Sorry for being so sharp so quickly, but that's what it sounds like. I mean,
Yeah.
so this is something we're going to talk about. We welcome to the Great Transition. We are looking at what is going on in the world in front of our eyes, and based on what we see in front of us, we're extrapolating what is going on, or we're climbing up those roots to where these phenomenon in our world are coming from, and why is it like that, and from the very unique perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is always kind of upside down from all the other explanations. I'm in the U.S. Chris and Asaf are over there in Israel. We're coming at you every week to talk about what is going on in the world through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Welcome. I saw we have friends from
What do you
Romania
see?
here, Peru,
Ooh.
U.S., Canada. All right. Guys,
Yeah.
human behavior is predictable. And that's one of the things that, we really need to build a toolkit for people when they come to the wisdom of Kabbalah. Or even, it's not even for people who come to the wisdom and want to really study, but just some kind of toolkit that we can make available to everyone. When I came to the wisdom of Kabbalah and started to understand that I'm built out of desire, like it seems so obvious once you're studying, but people don't get that. Even the seeing how Baal HaSulam describes the inanimate degree and then on top of that is the vegetative degree, and on top of that is the animal degree, and on top of that is the human degree. It's in front of our eyes our entire life, and
Yeah.
we know it, but we never stop and understand that there's these structures. Once we start to, and we really
Yeah,
need
it's
to build
like,
some kind
you
of
know,
toolkit.
Marshall McLuhan, the media theorist, said something that, I mean, it could be taken into different contexts, but it just kind of inspired that in me. He said the last thing a fish would notice in its environment is the water. Like, I mean, it's so obvious, and this is one of the things that Kabbalah does, huh? It kind of like it helps you zoom out of yourself to see where that self is and what forces are operating on it and activating it and where it's this what's the system that it's in. So it kind of helps you get that zoomed out perspective. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
But that's important because it's kind of the main thing, because if you just in your little box, in your little cube, living your life, and you don't think about where you are, where, any historian will tell you about how humanity has this, this very short memory, always
Right.
forgets about where it came from. And when things happen in this present moment and a person is in his little box, then the context is completely removed, which means that you would behave a certain way if you understood the history, if you felt where you came from, if you understood the forces that were acting and brought you to this point, you would have a completely different head, completely different way of thinking about it, as opposed to, just being in this kind of box that you have, and you're in your moment, and I just want to feel good. That's also another thing the wisdom of Kabbalah talks about is, this pleasure pain dance that we're always doing that moves
Yeah.
us through life. But you would act completely differently. I would even say more sane if you had that perspective all the time accompanying you. But we just go to sleep, we wake up the next morning, and that's it. I'm got to go to work, I got to handle my family, I got to do my bills, and that's kind of, you go to sleep and then you wake up and you do it again without maybe even one time thinking about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is the world that we're living in, where we don't think about long-term consequences of things. And not only do we not think of long-term consequences, we don't even see actual cause and effect. When you have a business, if you're not serving your customers, people stop going to your business. So if you want your business to work well, you have to adjust. The government, on the other hand, if they're doing a crappy job, who are you going to complain to? You're going to write a letter to, and say,
Right, your congressman.
you're going to stop driving on the roads if they're not repairing them, right? There's no mechanism to check it.
Yeah, it's
And
like the distance between action reaction could be so big and so convoluted
or
and
it
so
doesn't
indirect,
exist at all.
or it doesn't exist at all. Yeah.
This, and so we see with governments that they're, the U.S., we talked about it so many times, it like turns my stomach. We spent $1 trillion in the U.S. on the war on poverty, right? There's no accountability. If this was a business where someone was spending their money in order to get a return, you could be sure that it would be done on a lot less than that. So this is a phenomenon that we see actually. Maybe we can make some kind of playlist of our shows, because there's many things that we see that have this kind of exponential hockey stick curve happening in this generation, right? Technology, what else have we talked about? Knowledge. Many things are exponentially growing in this generation, and so is consumer debt. Consumer debt is following that exact same pattern of exponential growth. Now,
I wonder if they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I
Honestly.
was just thinking about these parallels. This whole exponential curve, exponential graph of human development. I mean, that's it's a whole thing in itself. It's in so many aspects: human population, of technological innovation, globalization, the digitization of society. All of these processes are all happening exponentially and in parallel, pretty much. Which again, this is essentially, these are things we're talking about from week to week between different episodes, different aspects of human life, but from the perspective of what we call the Great Transition, that all adds up. Like human development is sort of it's speeding up on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's grinding into a halt. You know what I mean? Like both of these things are true, because on the
Like
one
running
hand,
towards the edge of the cliff.
yeah, like exactly. Like that's a nicer way of saying that. Yeah, and you can
So
see
the
that in so many aspects of life.
we all
you know?
we all know this, and we've all felt this, where like you shouldn't eat that last bite of ice cream, or you shouldn't spend that extra dollar, or but you shouldn't. We all know that feeling. Why do we all know that feeling? Not because you're all sinners or we're all sinners. That's not why. The reason why we know that feeling is because, and if you open up your Kabbalah pack of tools that we have distributed to everyone, you'll understand in there that a human is built out of these desires. You are not in control of those desires. Those desires were planted in you through many, many, many generations and even before. And these are the things that develop the species, that develop the creature, that keeps your heart beating, that keeps you fed, that keeps the species alive from generation to generation. So these desires are in us. Now, these desires, and they're predictable. If you study history, study a wisdom like this, you'll understand, like Chris was saying, people don't study history, so they don't know what to expect. But if you start studying these things, you start to understand all these desires operating in a human. Let's start with the most fundamental one, air. Right? Take the nicest person you know and cover their hand, their mouth and their nose. They'll start scratching your hand off when they can't breathe. Right?
Yep.
It's fundamental. Then go to food. Okay, so it'll take a little longer. Maybe it'll take 2 days. But at some point, that person's going to, scratch through something to get food.
Yeah.
So we have all of our desires are like this. There's a certain threshold for air. Maybe it's a minute. For food, maybe it's a few days. But for everything in us, there's a certain threshold. And people know how to exploit this. It's not it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Nothing that we see going on in the world should come as a surprise if you understand what's happening. The costume that it takes in this generation is entertaining and could be surprising. But the process that it takes is not.
Isn't it crazy that in our time, not unlike in the past, we also know a lot about how the human being operates. I mean, if you look at the last 100 years or so of social psychology, behavioral economics, neuroscience, there is so much information that good information, good data, coming from experimentation and observation and documentation and so forth. A lot of science that tells us a lot about who we are and what we are. And this is just, earthly science. Like from a Kabbalistic perspective, we talk about human nature at a deeper level, let's say. But with the material sciences, we can talk about very specific occurrences and manifestations of human nature in different areas of human behavior. And so we know a lot. And still, it looks like as much as we know, this information, this data is being used against us on the whole. I mean, okay, so example, social media, right? I mean, we know today that social media, the way it is so effective on us, how addictive it is, this is all because it's based on human psychology. They literally built the algorithms based on science. That's why it works so well and so good. And of course, they experimented with us like lab rats so much so that by now all of those systems, those content categorization algorithms, your feeds essentially, and the interfaces of the social media platforms and all that, all of those are meticulously designed to elicit certain actions from human beings with a lot of experimentation that has been going. Every update, you know how your phone updates your apps like every second, and basically, like, if most people it's on autopilot, but it just happens all the time. So a lot of these things are things either behind the scenes or not, or in front, or on the front end, but they're constantly working to optimize. Now, what does it mean to optimize? To get out of you, in most cases, the behavior that they want. So we're in this experiment. Social media is just one example. We can talk advertisement, we can talk politics, we can talk, there all of the leaders of areas of human engagement. They know a lot about how the human being operates and use it. So what's crazy to me is that we know so much about ourselves, unlike any other creature, and it seems like the more we know, the worse we use it.
Okay, so hold on a sec. Here's an important scrutiny to put in there. Let's take Superman. Okay, strongest man in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
He can fly. He can laser from his eyes, right? But if you put kryptonite in his pocket, he falls to the ground. Doesn't matter how big his muscles are. Doesn't matter how good his eye lasers are. Doesn't matter that he could fly faster than the earth spins, right? You put a piece of kryptonite in his pocket, he's done. So you can take someone, for example, who's the president of the United States, most powerful man in the world, most powerful army in the world, and you can have a intern with a shapely body that attracts him, and and I'm sure they all do it, but I'm talking about like Bill Clinton in this case, like,
Yeah.
all of that power and all of that money, it gets all hijacked by the form of an available young woman in his office. Like,
Yeah.
it's like that, and it's all predictable. And this is how we're all exploited all the time. But if we start to understand the system, you can control every human being. I wish we were smart enough to lead the world towards love. I really wish we could figure out how to promote it in the right way, how to give examples of it in the right way that would make a person compelled to move towards a good world. But we'll have to talk about that more, and why it seems so elusive. But to your point, all of these desires, I talked about breathing, we talked about eating, of course the sexual desire, and money, honor, knowledge, power. Each of these has parameters. I have like a small, I can't really show it to you. I have a small mixing, oh here, I can show you on here. Like there's all, like, it's a keyboard, right? All of these are parameters. And each of us just has a unique set of parameters.
Yeah,
like,
nice.
one is more controlled by power, one it's knowledge, one it's money, right? And if you
Great.
know the parameter settings, like the 10 Sphirot settings, if you know the how much of each for each one, everyone is completely manipulated. Now, the thing that we're dealing with now, and the crisis, this credit crisis, is such a problem because it's such an easy one to manipulate people with.
Oh,
Because
the whole credit psychology is, that's totally predicated on, it's a very human thing. It's basically, in Kabbalistic terms, what does it mean to buy something in credit? It's basically, how does our nature work? From a Kabbalistic perspective, it's very simple. We are a desire to enjoy, a desire to be fulfilled, a lack, a receptacle that wants fulfillment. That's what we are.
can you take us back though to maybe like where that begins? Take a few minutes and just explain that, because you're saying it.
We're
and
going
we believe
very
you.
Kabbalah
But
foundations.
if you can just get to the fundamental place of why that is, like you say, oh, we're a desire. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in the show and I buy it, but
Right.
why?
Well,
Does wisdom of Kabbalah say this?
Okay, so we still have to keep it short. So right. So in short, I would say this: all of us are created beings, and just like you open your eyes, look at reality around you. You didn't create it, right? You didn't create the cosmos. You didn't create even the grain of sand that you see on the street. You didn't create any of that. You were born into that. And so did all other human beings. Now, that thing we call it reality, we call it nature, but that's just what we see with our eyes. And the deeper we investigate it, if we can break through the material sort of barrier, the material perception, then we can see that it's all one single system, and there's one single force that governs everything that exists. So that's essentially, where Kabbalah begins. Now, that force is a force of giving. It's a force of utter, complete, unconditional giving, a force that creates, sustains, and guides all of life. We also call it the Creator. Now, the Creator, the quality that the creative quality in nature, the creative quality that develops and guides and creates everything there is. So that quality is a quality of giving, and therefore the created being that it created is exactly the opposite quality. It's a receptacle. It's a desire to receive everything that this Creator has to give. And so we are, all of us, all human beings, and also all other parts of reality, all other levels of nature, animals, plants, even just planets, minerals, atoms, and what have you. These are all these are all material manifestations, but at the spiritual level, at the root level of reality, they are pieces of this one desire to receive that was created as an opposite replica of the abundance that the Creator has to give. So the Creator is a desire to give, the creation is a desire to receive, and therefore all human beings are parts of that desire to receive. And so that's what we're made of, spiritually speaking. At the fundamental level of our existence, we are a desire that wants to receive. That's why ultimately, if you ask any human being, what do you want? It doesn't matter what they say. Beyond that thing, which is their object that they're pursuing, or the job they're pursuing, or the loved one they're pursuing, or whatever it is, they want to be happy. That's the bottom line. Ask yourself, anyone who's listening to this, what do you really, really want? It doesn't matter what it is. It's in order to be fulfilled, to be happy, to feel joy, to feel good, to feel happiness, to feel pleasure. That's what we are. We are a desire to receive pleasure. We can't think of life and we can't think of existence any other way than how can I be happy? How can I enjoy? And this has to do whether whether you're a terrorist or Mother Teresa. We all want to just enjoy and feel pleasure and feel good.
That's also still vegetative animate too.
Exactly, and all those levels of nature, still vegetative, animate speaking, they're levels of desire. So we humans just have a very complicated, complex, multifaceted, evolved kind of desire, sophisticated kind of desire that divides into many, many different layers, whereas plants have a more simpler desire. Yeah.
Let me say that maybe the biggest fundamental difference, we can get into more, but between the human and all the animals who are doing the same thing, and all the plants that are doing the same thing, right? The plant wakes up, I need sun, I need something out of the soil. The animal gets up, I need to eat, I need to sleep. The human has this other mechanism where he's like, I can, credit, basically. Like, I can get the pleasure today, but I don't have to pay for it. There's no such thing that a lion is going to eat without going to work to chase it. There's no such thing that a plant is going to get sun if it doesn't open up its petals. It's like, no, I'm too tired today, I'm not going to open up.
Oh,
I'll
right.
do
So
it
why did we?
tomorrow.
Right. So why did we talk? Why did we get into human nature from a Kabbalistic perspective? Because we wanted to talk about credit. What is credit from a Kabbalistic perspective? Right. So now that we've established that we are a desire to receive pleasure, how does it work? The formula is quite simple. The E equals MC squared of this will to receive of human nature is maximum pleasure, maximum fulfillment at minimum cost. That's it. So
That sounds
how
like
much
that sounds like buy now, pay later.
exactly. So essentially, this is why the idea of credit works so well for our nature. It works so well because the idea basically says get as much as you can while giving as little as possible right now. Now, of course, we're not really giving little if we become enslaved for years because of credit, but that's how it appears to us. So we are able to confuse ourselves and to basically manipulate ourselves to feeling like it's just a little bit that we're giving
Well,
and we
also-
get a lot. I'm gonna pay, I don't know, $5 a month, and now I'm gonna get I don't know, what is it, a couch.
So there's
You know?
there's DoorDash
It sounds like
is used.
yeah.
So DoorDash is used all the time. If you don't know what DoorDash is, it's like one app you go to and you can order from like any restaurant in town. So instead of just ordering from the pizza place or just ordering from the Indian place, you go to DoorDash and you can order anything. On DoorDash, suppose you order $25 worth of dinner, whatever. You can pay on credit. You can finance it. You can pay like $2.35 a month for the next, however 50 months to do it. So it's very easy. What's another $2, right? What's another?
But also-
seriously, what's another?
It's true. It's true, but there's also, everyone's tried to do some kind of diet in the past. It's like I need to do some kind of restriction, but I know that typically it's like it's the right thing to do kind of thing. You're in that mindset of like you have that conflict between the mind and the heart. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with credit, but also on the out. I mean, just imagine if you're on in a diet, I'm not eating carbs or whatever, and then everyone around me is eating pizza all day. That makes it very difficult. But if everyone on the outside of me is also avoiding carbs, it makes it way easier for me to do the same. But it's the exact opposite or the exact problem with credit. Everyone is in debt. So what's another, like Seth said, what's another $25 from DoorDash? It's not like I feel like I'm an isolated individual making some crazy calculation. No, everyone else is doing that same calculation, and that's it. So here we are. So we have this issue. You can make many claims as far as like depression, anxiety, stress, sleep level. I mean, all these things that come from being under so much debt and contribute to basically you can at the end of the day you could say is a health issue for the human being, but we're still like unable to move out of it. You guys just finished explaining what? No.
No. I'm interested in talking about where is this headed, this whole thing, right? Because I mean,
Exactly.
didn't we look at this? What was the statistic you said about the like Americans today? What is their situation in terms of their balance, their bank balance? What are the averages?
It's a
Thank
trillion
God.
and a half. It's a trillion and a half.
You're asking. He's
Chris.
asking about 1,000. There was like no.
Yeah.
They're not. I forgot some percentage of Americans
find
don't
it.
even have $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
Right, or something
What? Which one was that
Yeah,
exactly?
I'm gonna find it. Hold on.
Because that really puts it into perspective.
I mean that the first time I
Here
heard
you go.
that,
Here you
I'm
go.
like, really? Yeah. Go.
57% of adults don't have $1,000 to cover an unexpected expense, and more than a third of the U.S. has more credit card debt than savings.
That's insane. That's crazy. Because I mean, when you think about that, if that is true, where are we going? Because you're going into a world. If this is just growing, more people don't have $1,000 if they, in case of need. More people are enslaved by debt. More people can't make ends meet. Where, you know what I mean? But people still live. First of all, people are still living, and probably quite well, right? This is the paradox. Like, you can, am I saying correctly? You tell me as a.
Do you see this?
As a,
Do you see
yes,
this?
stuck in credit debt. 60% of credit
60
card debtors carry debt for a year or more.
So the problem is
60%,
that
at
most
least
of the,
1 year.
So the problem with the credit card debt is, say the interest rate is 20%. Okay, so if you have $100 in debt and you carry it, so after a year it's $120, right? If you have $1,000, so after a year it's $1,200. So if
Yeah.
you don't get this thing paid off, you're buried. You can't get out. You know,
Yeah,
because if
and,
you
and
have
it's
three-
you're incrementally buried. Basically, you're continuously buried.
And if you have
Yeah.
if you have $3,000, $5,000 in debt, you can make a minimum payment of $50 or $70 or something like that. You're never eating away at the balance. You're just making a minimum payment to just get one more breath before.
Okay, so today we're at a situation where, at least in America, I'm sure there are similar statistics in other Western countries. We could look into that, but maybe ask Perplexity now. Like, is that the same in other or similar in other countries? Anyway, where are we going? This is the question. Where are we headed? And as part of that question, I want to add another big player into the mix, and that is AI. Because AI is, the message of AI basically is economic disruption. We're going into a world where efficiency and capability is going much, much higher, where economic disruption is the name of the game. Technological unemployment is a huge thing. Cost reduction,
Slow down,
everything
slow
is
down.
going.
Not everyone knows.
Yeah.
Not everyone knows what technological unemployment means. So
Right. So essentially, it means that the
You're gonna
more
lose your job to have
yeah,
robot.
exactly. Like, the better AI gets, the more jobs it can take, and
Which is
and
already
what
happening.
which is already happening. And of course, it's a debatable area, because if you look at history, you would say, oh well, always technology took away jobs and created new jobs. Yeah, but here it seems like AI can easily outpace the speed at which new jobs are created. The speed at which it can take jobs is much bigger. So this is a huge disruption mechanism, but it reduces the cost of labor. It reduces the cost of creating all kinds of things. AI itself creates an innovation acceleration situation, because AI can learn, and it can be trained, and then it learns, and then it keeps updating itself. It in many contexts, it becomes better and better. Look at generative AI, for example. Look at like a year ago, I think.
The Will Smith spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly. A
Whatever.
year ago, you had the first AIs that created video, and it looked funny. Yeah, come on, this doesn't look like a video. You look at it today, and it's just a year or so, and this is indistinguishable from a from a true video. And all of the security concerns that come from that, all of Hollywood, is absolutely going to change, if any of it is gonna stay at all.
already is.
So
I was in San Francisco a week ago when I was coming home from Yosemite. Check this out. This is a self-driving car that was driving next to me.
Okay.
Did you see
Oh,
that?
these are
There's
gonna
no
get
driver.
in. Yeah, for sure.
There's no
Yeah,
driver.
Right. No driver else.
It goes
That's
around.
funny.
You see these all over the city. They drive around. It's like an Uber, and it picks you up and drops you off. But there's no driver.
It's already functional. It's already.
Bro, it's driving around
It
the
was
city.
legislation, I think, that was kind of holding it back in most areas.
Wow.
Bro, the thing is driving around the city with no driver in it. I
Yeah.
took this video.
Yeah,
I was
that's
driving.
crazy. Good
We're
job.
And you know what? We're already kind of used to seeing that. Like, on one hand, that's crazy. On the other hand, it's like almost expected. You know, it's like there's a
Yeah.
lot of, it's amazing how quickly we adapt as well. You know, looking
Mm-hmm.
back at ChatGPT and now looking at it like, come on, like what, you can write a
Yeah, it's
poem,
like
you know?
exactly. Yeah, this is such a funny thing. The getting used to technology. I mean, this. Oh man, well, this opens up a whole tangent now about technology. But it's like, because I mean, the technology is a very interesting thing. It's not like a thing that we build. It's a part of us. It's an expression of our
An
development, really.
extension kind of,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, I mean, this is, and what is credit? It's another kind of technology that allows us, but this is a really interesting thing. Like, credit is something we came up with in order to allow us to get without giving, essentially, or to
So
minimize
there's the
giving
root.
and maximize receiving. Essentially, that's what created credit, and
But
that's
look
why it
where
works
it
so
got
well.
us. We wouldn't have been able. I mean, now you
Yeah,
have
yeah, of
like, if you
course.
want to pour in billions to make something happen, you know those billions, that
Right.
the GPT that we got wouldn't have happened without it.
Yeah, this is another important thing. It may sound like, from how we're talking about it, as if we're like, latently criticizing capitalism or going against it or something like that. This is not our approach. Our approach is that human development has different stages, and things are correct for certain stages of development. What is beginning to happen in our time, and clearly without the economic system the way it was in the last, let's say, 100 years, we wouldn't be able to advance. It's also part of our development. But there comes a time when a change needs to happen. And this is the only thing that is consistent
That shirt gets
throughout
dirty and
history
it's
is
time to take it
change.
off.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I mean, we're getting to a point where this is why I'm asking, where are we going? We're getting to a point where, wait a second, debt is just globally, is just mounting and mounting. This use of credit and so forth, that is becoming a problematic as well. 60% of Americans don't have, or almost 60% don't have $1,000 in case of need. Whoa, where are we going? Wait a second. Like, where is this thing going? And at the same time, we're creating this technology that can potentially easily relieve us from human labor, relieve us from doing all kinds of things to survive. So we're getting into a very paradoxical world. We're in debt, burdened by debt, can't see a way out of it, and at the same time, we have the technology to create a completely different kind of life that, with the help of technology, we can really create a great state of well-being for everyone. So
you
it's a
know what?
very paradoxical state. Like, the only thing that's missing is, how do we move from this to that? Like, that's the one thing. We
Exactly.
already in a crappy situation, and we
Yeah.
have a potentially very good situation. Now, how do you move from here to there? That's what it's all about. Yeah.
You know, the when you said that, for all of a sudden the word debt and the idea of it is like very strange, because all it's basically saying is, you owe, no, 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 you owe me. I mean, that's kind of, at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
that's the bottom line. You know, like, I need my money, but that's just the other part of the equation demanding its, receiving of a part of the deal. And basically what you're saying is, we're getting to a stage where it looks like no one's going to be able to do it, so someone's going to end up losing at the end of the day. So how, like you're saying, how do we bridge that gap? And it sounds like AI is going to do this thing where it kind of like takes over. Many people are going to lose their job, right? This is just speculative, but it seems like it's kind of going in that direction. So someone's going to be losing out. Either someone's not going to get paid, or someone's going to lose their job, right? It's going to be in kind of this weird. But are we saying that AI is coming to save the day, or are we just talking
Mm.
about this weird time that we're because there's a lot of people who are like talking philosophically about AI. Maybe they weren't before. I remember you shared with us a video. I don't know if we've even mentioned it here on the show, but it was a guy who talks about the technology aspect of AI. You know, this new feature, this new model, but now he kind of like he had this video where he transitioned into talking about like the like philosophical idea of what it means for humanity, right?
Yeah,
It
and
was kind of like a
the
question
future
that
of
wasn't.
society. One thing I'm regularly, not every day, but like at periodically, I am following what is happening, at least in the generative AI scene, right? That niche, like basically what new AI based tools we get to create content, right? Because I'm always looking for how we can communicate what we want from a Kabbalistic perspective in more creative ways, and AI can really help us do that. And so, what's interesting to see, it's not just that guy. People who are playing with AI, with generative AI in this case, creating videos, creating imagery, creating text, creating music with AI, from using it, they get a really strong sense of how this is going to change everything, because they suddenly understand. Think about it like the I don't know, the washing machine. We gave that example at some point, right? I mean, think about that point in time where people understood, oh, I don't have to go all the way to the river and and wash my clothes there or something like that. And okay, now river, you have a tap at home before you had a washing
There was a
machine, right?
washboard a little bit
But
in between there.
yeah, okay, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden you have all that time to do other things, and today we take it for granted. But with AI, this is like on steroids. This is not just a wash. This is a thing that can do everything, potentially everything that a human can do. So it raises serious questions. How is society going to look like when AI can do anything we can do? And what is the human being supposed to do if AI can do everything and better? So what is that place? And
Let's start with the
yeah.
most. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Let's start with the most simple things. Right now, I just went to the Waymo website. I posted it in the chat now. So in Phoenix, Arizona, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin, Texas, you can download the app and call a driverless car. Okay? So in any of those cities, if there was an Uber driver, he's now competing with
a
an
car
driver.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Nice.
So you don't need a person anymore. The
Yep.
car knows when it needs gas. It pulls in. The car knows when it needs service. It pulls in, and he never has to sleep like a human being.
Right.
Okay. So now you think of all of the
Can't
trucks
really get
going-
mad at a passenger either. Yeah.
all the trucks aren't moving everything on the highway. A driver's only allowed to drive in the United States. I think it's in New York anyway. 10 hours a day. So I think that's what it is. So now you can drive 24/7. You never get tired, and you just make one lane on the side of the highway. Go 100 miles an hour, just the trucks with no drivers
Oh,
back
my
and
God.
forth, delivering stuff.
Right.
everywhere.
Someone's getting
so
rich.
right away, you got millions of jobs, and now all the people working at the service stations and the gas and the stops, and now all the people that drove those trucks, all the grocery stores that they used to go to, well, they don't have money anymore because they're not employed because the trucks are driving themselves. So now the grocery stores they used to go to buy milk also don't have any money, and it's going to trickle. So right away, you can see it's very close. It's not something far in the future. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's happening very, very, very quickly, and we'll see, more and more industries. But this one is super. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
I showed you a
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Literally, there's some Uber driver who doesn't have a job anymore because this car is driving itself. Not that Uber is the greatest thing ever, but that it's already happening. That
That was
robots-
Okay.
that was a quick little thing too. Uber, like it was a very quick little.
Like a blip in the history of the
blip.
21st century,
Yeah.
if you think about it that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
yeah. But I
Guys,
mean,
I'm not exactly
yeah.
I'm not exactly
is-
sure how this fits, but there is a very, very clear Kabbalistic archetypical model that maybe we can refer to here. In Egypt, before, when those people were enslaved in Egypt, they were working and working and working, but never got the benefit of it. And it's like now you're working and working, but someone's always taking all of your paycheck. So you're living and you're getting the meat, you're just charging it, but you're never really having any of the feeling of satisfaction from the work, even though you're eating and even though you're doing all the things. This archetype of being stuck in this trap of the ego where you can't free yourself and someone else is always getting, like, I work in the United States. I'm not saddled with tens of thousands of dollars of debt, but I still work until Wednesday afternoon to pay taxes. I mean, when I go to work on Monday and Tuesday and half of Wednesday, that much goes to the government for taxes. I only get the rest of the week. So all of us, and if you live in a socialist country,
that's a depressing way to look at it. But I can see the calculation.
In countries like Holland, it's even more. I think that the tax rate is even higher.
Well, they get plenty of vacation. Don't they get like 6 weeks of vacation or something? 6 months of vacation or something
Could
crazy
be.
over every couple of years.
But does this help at all? For some reason, this Egypt example is like starting to hover around in my.
I'll tell you what I got from this, and let me just. It's just I want to read a quote. I just need a second to find it. From Baal HaSulam, the great Kabbalist of the previous century. His article "Peace in the World," I think it is. He writes at the somewhere at the end there. Just talk about something. Give me a second.
Something. Egypt. We were talking about Egypt. Talking about. I mean, the whole slavery thing is kind of interesting. If you're talking about, you found it. Okay, I'm not even gonna start.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about how if you so far even without the Kabbalistic perspective, just talking about where we're going. Right? So there are these two conflicting trends. On the one hand, we're developing the technology to make our life so easier, to make our life simpler, to delegate all kinds of things that we have to do in order to sustain human life. We can better organize the resources of the planet, everything. We can do with AI so much to make life a paradise on Earth. And on the other hand, life is getting, in a weird way, more difficult. We are more burdened. We are more in debt. Like, how does that even make sense, right? So there has to be some transition. And here, I'm just going to throw this. I don't know. Those who can make the connections will make it. Those who can't won't. But let's see what challenge. Let's read it and see. Okay, so he writes. It's a short thing. I'm not going to show it on the screen. To technically complicated now. If we delve into the matter, he says, we find that the whole contradiction from reception for oneself to bestowing upon others is nothing but psychological. Because in fact, we do bestow upon others without benefiting ourselves. This is so because although self-reception manifests in us in various ways, such as property, possessions, that the heart, eye, and palate covet, etc., all of those are defined by one name, pleasure. Thus, the very essence of reception for oneself is that a person desires is nothing but the desire for pleasure. Now, imagine that if we were to collect all the pleasures that one feels during his 70 years of life and put it on one side, and collect all the sorrow and suffering one feels on the other side, if we could see the balance, we would prefer not to be born at all. This is like, you were talking about Sunday, Monday, Wednesday going for taxes, right? And Seth and Chris said that's depressing. How about look at all your life and try to compare how much of it are you really getting what
Oh,
you're
high
hoping to
school.
be getting. Like that's what came up to me from Seth's Egypt. It's like we're working and chasing and slaving away and under debt and everything. And if you put everything on the scales, it doesn't look so good.
So the,
It
you know what
doesn't.
also is an interesting thing about the modern world is you take a person 100 years ago and they feel the burden, right? And it's so hard and they don't have enough for their family and they feel bad. Then you take a person today with a couple credit cards and like there's a big color TV on the wall and they just ordered takeout pizza and they have a car in the driveway and they got student loan debt and they feel bad because of the debt. But the point is, before your hands were empty and you feel bad. Today, it's as if your house is full. Everyone's house is full of stuff, and we feel really bad because there's this debt thing. It's an
The
interesting
act
juxtaposition.
they even said that the act of handing over the credit card, it's almost like you're just doing it, you know, like begrudgingly, kind of just take the card. I have to do it. I have to live. I have to buy this. I have to do this, and it's just that the act itself causes a lot of emotional stress. So on one hand, like like you're saying, that they have to do it. On the other hand, they hate doing it. So that's like that's kind of the weird situation that we're in. Before we could talk about the American dream and, wow, look how many people came to America to live that dream and to flourish here and become entrepreneurs and to, really get everything that they could possibly want, something that they couldn't get wherever else they were before. That time, you could say that time is long gone, right? And we're clearly in a new stage. And the new stage has many different symptoms. One of them, the stress of just having to pay for something, right? Another one, I don't know, you could always talk about depression. You could talk about the drug issue. You could talk about educational system. Like everything is kind of collapsing. And then on the other hand, you have the AI kind of happening. So there's clearly some like weird movement, and it's causing this like uncomfortable feeling inside. Like, I don't know.
That's a
I
good
remember even
point.
telling my son, I was like, I was telling him, hey, I'll buy you a computer if you just, learn how to type. Dad, I don't want to learn how to type. I just don't, I'm never going to do it. I was like, no, I need you to like overcome. You'll feel very proud of yourself for entering a challenge, succeeding, learning how to do it. And I don't know, it was like a few months ago, I had this thought and I was like, he actually may not need to learn how to type. I mean, it really may not actually be a need. So it's just a weird time that we're in. Like, it's like, what is the point of the human? Like, what are we doing? And
Well, it's good to
going
try
school.
to do things and persevere and, and things that are challenging and succeed anyway. I mean, that will build his character, but typing he might not need to do. Yeah, that's
May not
true.
need it. It's a weird time. We're in a weird time, and I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with him. What kind of, do you prepare him for a job? Is there even going to be a job? It's just kind of a weird time. And if you look at these people that are kind of in debt, or I don't know what generation really, how to define which generation it is, but it's almost like they don't really want to get a job. They don't really care about getting out of debt. It's like there's almost not enough motivation to even try. At one point you would say, I'm in debt. Dave Ramsey, I know Seth knows Dave Ramsey, probably, this guy who's like really popular radio show host. And, callers will call in, I've got $300,000 in debt. What do I do? And he's like, okay, let's go over your financials. And there's like this, there's this movement to help people get out of debt. But now it seems like people don't really even care. So it's another indication that we're just in this weird kind of time. And no one really knows what to do.
It is a transition. We are calling it the Great Transition. Here's a quote from the very end. This is the final paragraph of Baal HaSulam's article, Peace in the World. So the article where he describes in broad strokes what's required for peace in the world ends with this, right? So, and I mean, we got a few minutes left. Let's talk about how does that transition, that change happens, right? So he says this, but all of this is a private calculation, what he talked about before, when one works for oneself. But remember that calculation, look at all your life, try to put all the suffering on one side of the scale, all the pleasure and happiness on the other side of the scale. It doesn't look too good. You may have not, prefer not to be born if you saw that calculation. But then he says all of this is when you do a private calculation, when one works for oneself. But in a global calculation, the individual produces more than he receives for his own pleasure and sustenance. Thus, if the direction were to change from self-reception to bestowal, the individual would enjoy the entire produce he produces without much pain. Meaning, if I could somehow be in the work I'm doing, in the labor the effort that I'm making, the work that I'm doing, let's say, on a daily basis. Maybe we don't even need to work every day, but some in a future society. But in a future society, the work that the individual is doing contributes to the whole, and the joy that one feels is that abundance that everyone have, that the whole that reaches the whole. So everyone invests a little and gets everything. It's a different state of mind. For that, we have to get to that point where we want to feel like we all have everything.
Like if we're trying to suck something out of it for ourselves, like to fill my house with stuff, then we end up as a society in this empty place. But if we come out of ourselves into this giant system with billions of people and waterfalls and sunrises and oceans and fruit trees and all this stuff, the system doesn't require that much of me actually. Like we each just need to do a little bit and everything works. Like the fruit trees grow, the sun rises, the waterfall happens, right?
Now throw AI into the mix, and you see that the human being doesn't need to do much. Like I'm talking technically, like in order to provide for the basic needs of human survival and more, not just surviving, meaning that everyone will have food, clothing, housing, medicine, education, like pretty much those 5 things to start with. We can easily get everyone in the world all of that stuff. And we don't need a lot of human labor for that in a world of AI. This is absolutely realistic in the coming years. This is already something that we could totally be moving towards, but we're not in that mindset. We're not in that mindset of let's do just a little bit in order from everyone so that everyone can have everything. Our mode is let's compete with each other so that the winner takes it all, basically. And you see that everywhere, in politics, in the corporate world, in business, the stock market. Everyone is just trying to get as much as possible at the account of others. And do they get happy? Even those at the top. We already understand that it doesn't work for most people. Most people, we just read, 60% don't even have $1,000 to spare, right? In case of need. So it's clearly not working for everybody. It is working for those, let's say, top 10%. Are they really happy? That's another question to ask. Are they at least those who managed to use this system the best for the today's system? Are they happy? Are they happy people? It's a question. It's a big question.
I think it's a known fact that they're not.
For another episode, yeah.
Oh, already? Look at that.
We look at people all around us and we see what they have and we want it, and I see someone with that kind of car and I want it, but the problem is then later I see someone with those shoes and I want it, and then later the problem is that I see somebody with something in their grocery cart that I want, and I want that also. Because of the kind of creatures we are, we want what we see around us, the eye sees and the heart's covet, and we end up in this place where we started the show today, that people are laying awake at night, they can't sleep, they got this gnawing thing inside their stomach. But if we're surrounded by people and we start being inspired by this love, by this good feelings, by these connections, and that becomes what we desire, we open up a whole new reality. We hope to talk to you about that more. The 3 of us will be back next week, where we will be uncovering what is going on in the world through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone for being here with us. We're reading all your comments and very happy to be part of this great transition with you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Will be our common fate. It's time for the arrival. A unity, y'all get it straight. We will overcome as one all of these troubles, like sisters and brothers. Sometimes we fight. Opportunity comes when we disagree, so we can finally see that from the dark night. We will raise the dawn, loving each other together. We'll sing one song. War brings the need to finally realize all of our dreams in peace. I mean, mine is how we live, but there must be an alternative to the situation. If we're gonna thrive, all these crises can be solved if we collectively evolve to receive a revelation.